Hi. You're expecting more from me, but that's all I have. On my last session, I started with a very deep voice, but I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to be myself. This is a class on writing songs, and in particular writing songs for people who don't sing very often, congregational songwriting. I suppose that description could also define reggae music or anything else that's played in bars, but there are some similarities, to be honest, which is I guess why the Wesleys used to choose bar tunes to write their hymns to, huh? So it's an interesting thing that we're kind of tasked with doing when we write congregational songs. We're trying to write these songs that people can sing like first thing on a Sunday morning after you've dropped the kids off, had a fight in the parking lot, reconsidered your faith, and have just stepped into the auditorium, and then somebody goes, all right, we're going to sing some rock and roll. I always feel real bad for those people. But our job is to help them really honor God and sing. And the Lord talks about singing. He makes mention of it not just in the Old Testament, not just in the Psalms, but even in the New Testament, sing and make melody in your heart to the Lord. He actually really cares about songs, which is pretty astonishing. I did mention it before, but I mean, it could have been wood carving. That could have been the thing that God talked about. We'd all be whittling. There'd be a small class on whittling for congregations. I mean, it is astonishing, isn't it, that it's songs. It could be anything at all. Masonry for small groups. That's crazy. I mean, we all like music, I guess. I remember, I still have it every now and again. I just think, man, we are making music in church, and people want us to do that. The Lord wants us to do it. It's kind of cool. And at its heart, music is fun. Like, I guess most of us play because we really enjoy playing. And we sing these little melodies because we enjoy it. We enjoy making this music. So even though the topics and the themes that we look at and maybe we'll talk about later are deep and hopefully deep and have some gravity to them, we're musicians and we do this because we love it and it's fun. And kind of my basic challenge to myself and to other musicians is just have fun with this. Really just enjoy this, get into the cool part of it. This is amazing that they let us do this, man. Anyway, so I'm going to talk you through my process of how I go about writing a congregational song. And obviously this isn't science or engineering. It's not like building bridges. If you get this stuff wrong, nobody's going to die. Although people may feel distinctly uncomfortable on a Sunday morning if you do get it wrong. But this really is art. This falls into the art category. So, if it works and it's never been done before, then you're doing it right. And if it doesn't work, you're doing it wrong. The only way to tell is to try it out on unsuspecting congregations, which is what I've been doing for years now. That's why I've moved country 3 times. Eventually they find you out, and it's like, there's that guy who sings the weird songs. He's just got to keep running. But it is art and it is fun, and what I'm going to talk about really are just the rules of the road, but they're not mathematical formulas, and people aren't going to die. It's not like rocket science. You can't go back to somebody's writing a song and say, hey, by the way, you haven't done X, Y, and Z on this song, and that's why it's wrong. You can't say that. But the proof is in the pudding. That is, if people can sing with you and want to sing with you, not just once, but again and again. So that's the goal, and I'm going to talk you through the process. There's kind of 3 elements to the way I write songs, 3 things that I'm shooting for, and that songwriting feels like. The first one is it feels like fishing, believe it or not. The second one, it feels like preparing a one-point sermon. And the third one is it's like doing crosswords. There, my work is done. Go in peace. No. So I'm going to talk about those three things. And our goal, as I mentioned briefly before, is to write songs that are simple enough for large groups of people to sing, but interesting enough for them to want to sing again and again. So simple and bad is actually quite easy. Simple and good is almost impossible. It's really hard, but it isn't impossible. People do it all the time, and not just in congregational worship songs. Bob Marley wrote like an incredible amount of simple, amazing songs that people sing. People who aren't musicians, everyone sings. No Woman, No Cry. Just like almost every one of his songs, jamming in the name of the Lord. They're all easily accessible by anybody. So that's what we're trying to shoot for. All right. So why is songwriting like fishing? The great sage Winnie the Pooh once said, you don't find hums, hums find you. You don't find hums, hums find you. Man, I bet you never thought that there'd be any exegesis on Winnie the Pooh, but here we are. I told you this is crazy. And what I understand from that is you can get yourself in the kind of headspace where songs come to you a little bit better and more easily than in other headspaces. And I discovered this when I was living in England. So I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa. We spent a lot of time outdoors and in the ocean and on the mountains, and I lived a very kind of outdoorsy life. And then I moved to England. Felt like the Lord had asked me to stay there and work with the church. And we spent most of our time indoors because it's always pretty gloomy out there and cold. And I was miserable for like 6 years, really. And the people were amazing, but everything else was hard for me. And then one summer, one of us discovered wakeboarding at a lake. We lived inland, so we weren't even near to the ocean. And that summer, we went wakeboarding every weekend. And at the end of that summer, I realized I'd written more songs that summer than I had in all the years that I'd been in England up until that point. I was like, that's interesting. So I was having fun this summer, and I was productive. Now, this flies in the face of all of the severe Protestant work ethic that most of us grew up with. But we're playing. We're playing when we make music. We're trying to come up with something that we've never come up with before, and hopefully that no one else has come up with before. And to do that, you kind of need to be in a playful state of mind. There is another way to do it, and that's to be absolutely desperate and brokenhearted. But you don't have to worry about organizing that. Pain knows where you live, and he'll come knocking. So don't worry about that. But I would recommend maybe let's just take 15 seconds. Just think about, maybe answer two questions for yourself. When was it that you were writing prolifically? When have you been most creative? And then answer the second question, what was going on in your life at that time? And what were you doing? So you've got maybe half a minute just to think about that while I noodle around on my guitar. Told you. Gentleman's providing nice vocal accompaniment. All right. Do you get any answers while you were sitting there thinking about that, listening to a poor rendition of Blackbird? Thank you. That was beautiful. All right. So, if you haven't done this and you're still thinking about it, just try to think of some of the things that make you happy. If you're married, often your spouse is the best person to answer this question. Like my girl, my wife, she makes me go surfing. She's like, you're unpleasant until you go surfing and you come back a little nicer. Please do that more often. And so she almost boots me out the house. She's like, go surfing, come back nice. And that often happens to me. So I know that works. And because of that, I spend a lot of time in the water, and I'm often working on songs while I'm in the water. So that's kind of my fishing hole. That's one of my fishing holes. And my recommendation is find some fishing holes. Just find some things that inspire you. Another thing that inspires me is movies. I love movies. I'm a grown-up, but when I step into a movie theater, I suspend all disbelief. Like I'm 4 years old in my mind, and I feel everything. If I watch a movie at altitude, I'm like a mess. I have to make sure I do not watch movies that involve animals or the death of animals at altitude, because I'll wail like a small child. But very often, like I feel things, and when I feel things deeply like that, I kind of get a sense. I get this. It's like a catalyst. It's just this emotional burst of energy that'll help me start a song. And emotions are fantastic catalysts. They start songs. They don't finish them very often, but they're a good start. They're a good way in. So for me, it's movies. Books are pretty inspiring. Sermons obviously are great. The wealth of sermons out there is unbelievable right now. So pretty much, there were a couple of preachers who I really love. I love the preacher at my home church, but I also love listening to preachers from around the world. And almost every weekend when I'm flying back home, I'm listening to Louis Giglio or James MacDonald or somebody like that, and I just check in, and it's fantastic, man. It's just amazing that we can access that and access their gifts just immediately like that. So that's one of the things. Obviously, prayer time, waiting on the Lord, whatever it is. But maybe take a moment just in the busyness of today, at some point just sit down and just think about the things that inspire you to write, inspire you to make music, and maybe inspire you to say things. There's another element to the metaphor of fishing that I want to talk about, and that is catch and release. All right, so I'm a real doofus. Like, whenever I get a song idea, I normally go, this is amazing. Like, I'm saying it to myself. I don't tell anybody else that. That would be weird. But in my head, I'm like, I love this. Like, I really believe in every song. Like, it's the best. It's going to be the best song I've ever written. And while I've got the energy for that, I'll keep working on the song. So maybe I get a melody idea at 10 o'clock at night. For some reason, that often happens. Then, like, while everyone else is sleeping, I'm just lying there, probably with my phone, like trying to knock out the lyrics while I'm there. And I'll go to sleep thinking, this is it, man. Really, this is the nicest thing I've ever done. I'm so excited about this. Then I'll wake up, and at 10 o'clock the next morning, I'll look at it, and I'll be like, what on earth were you thinking, man? Unicorn is not a congregational term. For those of you who sleep with Ambien, make sure you do that. So very often then I'll write the song to its completion, and then I'll throw it back. I'll throw it back. I'll be like, well, I finished that song about unicorns and worship, but I'm not going to use that. I won't even take it out to my poor small group meeting. They don't even get to hear some of those songs. And then I'll leave it. And very often what I find is, like, maybe 9 months later or even a few months later, however long it takes, I'll stumble on a melody idea again that'll be the same thing. Now, it could be lyric or melody, but very often the melody will have shifted a little bit, maybe developed a little bit, and it'll be more interesting and more congregational for me. And then at that point I go, man, I believe in this one. Like, I properly believe in it, not just at 12 o'clock at night. I believe it at first thing in the morning as well. And I'll work that one till it's finished. So that's my process. I work every idea that I feel good about till it's done, and then I'll just kind of pop it away and see if it works or not. I guess we've been singing a song. There's a song I'm interested in at the moment. Oh, dear Lord. which we sang this morning and yesterday morning, which was God My Rock. Man, I'm actually going to have to tune it. I don't have the skills. Oh, no, I've just unplugged it. I'm a professional. I do this for a living. My father is still surprised. Yeah. This is my main job. There's no plan B. I'm just going to fool around down here, talk amongst myself. Oh, no, all right. Yeah, he wouldn't be surprised. This is... all right. All right. Guess that's good enough for the demonstration. All right, so... yeah, we've been doing a song called God My Rock, which I finished writing with Paul Balash a couple of weeks ago. And the chorus goes, right now the chorus is, you are the strength of my heart. You are the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. I can rely on you. But the first incarnation of that song was like this. You are the strength of my heart. It's just like a little difference. You are the strength of my heart. And I sat with that for like 6 weeks, and I was the only one who liked that. But I really liked it a lot. And so I just kept at it. And then eventually one morning I woke up and I was singing the melody just slightly different. The melody line was falling just at a different place in the bar, and then it felt good. And I was like, okay. So catch and release. A while ago, a guy called Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Anyone remember that book? It seemed like everyone had it in the restroom. I don't know why. You go there and you sit there and like, oh, effective people read in the restroom. Maybe that was like in the prologue. If you really want to be effective, only one pair of shoes and make sure this is in the restroom. Anyway, it was a funny old book, and it feels pre-Google right now. There were a lot of things in there that feel like they're from the 80s, but there were a lot of things in there that were pretty good, quite useful. And one of the things he talks about is the difference between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality. And these are... Wow. I'm kind of scared about coughing. Hello. Good. All right. That could have gone anyway. Yeah. That could have been 7 minutes of me coughing. So the basic thesis of the book was he examined kind of the habits of people who succeeded in life and the way they thought and the way they acted. And this was one of the things he picked out, which was this scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality. Scarcity mentality is this. You're only going to get a couple of good ideas. I'm going to just translate it straight into the songwriting world. You're only going to get a couple of good ideas in your life. Guard those with your soul. Don't let anybody touch those things. When you play it to other people, when you play the idea to other people, tell them God gave you the melody, because you can't correct God. And don't let anyone else in the creative process at all. Because this is it. You may never write another song again. So you need to guard it with your life. Now, the abundance mentality goes like this. There are plenty of great ideas in the world, just like thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And you're going to have thousands and thousands of great ideas throughout the course of your life. And if we believe this thing, this is just the beginning. Earth is just the beginning of our adventure with God. And these ideas and this life that we live, this abundant life that he gives us, is just the beginning. And you're going to write millions of songs. This is just the beginning of you writing millions and millions of songs, if you like writing songs. Now, if you have that view, when you start in on a song or you begin a creative process, instead of worrying that, man, I could mess this up, and this could be the only thing that I ever write. I better be super careful, and you're holding on tight, and your knuckles are white, and I'm not a rapper. And you don't want anybody involved, and you won't release the fish. You're like, I know it's small, but I'm starving, and I'm never going to eat again, so I'm keeping this song. Actually, that's I think he's pointed something out that's helpful. And as creatives, we kind of need to constantly reaffirm this. Creativity is not like a pie that the earth has been given, and if people start eating the pie, there's going to be no pieces left for you. That's not how it works. That's not the metaphor. Everything God's done, even throughout creation, is profligate. There's just an abundance of stuff. It's like, I mean, if you look at the way flowers and trees germinate, it's just like it's just profligate. He's generous on every level. He's generous. He's a generous God. And we can live that way. That's what he calls us to live like, to live generously and to be generous with our ideas, with our hearts, with our time. And again, with our creativity. So, if you have doubts about the song and you're not sure about it, just release it back into the wild. Hopefully it'll come back bigger and better. Often that's what happens. Don't think it's me, but it's possible. After my tuning incident. No, it's not. All right. So, does that make sense? Louis Giglio talks about writing with the door open, allowing people into the process. If not as co-writers, then just as sounding boards. The funny thing about being a songwriter is you don't need another songwriter to critique your song. Anybody can tell you whether a song is good or bad. I mean, literally, you can play a song. Like, I play a song to my mom, and she can say to me, "No, chainsaw is not a congregational word." She hasn't written a song in her life. She just knows. People know. They can tell if it's a good song or a bad song. You don't have to know how to write songs to tell that. So that's kind of cool. All of us can go home and test drive our songs on people. And, Paul Ballage says he's got the three, like, what's good about this? What makes you feel good? Maybe what makes you feel funny about this? Like, is there anything kind of odd and like funky about this? And typically, like, if you take a poll, you try a few people, most of them will come back with the same things. So that's good news, right? You don't have to enroll in some kind of massive, expensive songwriting academy to write good songs. You can just get going right now and then try them out on your poor little churches, just like I do. All right. So that's why songwriting is like fishing for me. You've got to find some good fishing holes. You've got to be willing to catch and release. And then you should have, if you're able to, some kind of good capturing system. You need a net, somewhere to make sure when the good ideas come around, you've got a place to put them. And for me, it's my phone. This is it. It all happens on this thing. I've got an app called Record. It's an iPhone. And there's like a notes thing that comes with the phone, and that's where I do all my writing. Like, I sing my melodies onto the Record app, and then I work on the lyrics after everyone's gone to sleep in my house on my phone. But ideas are funny. Song ideas are funny because they can come and then they can disappear, and they may never come back again. And it's kind of hard to assess how important they are because you don't get to see. I love the story about Michael Jackson was asked why he was working so hard and why I wasn't sleeping at night. He was like working on ideas, and he went, "I can't stop." He said, "If I don't get them, Prince is going to get them. God is giving them to Prince if I don't get these done." I do feel like that sometimes. Like, we're all getting roughly the same influences. If we're all worship leaders and musicians, we're listening to a lot of the same things. It's almost like a conversation that's going on. And when you're in part of a conversation, at a certain point, you'll say what comes next. You'll go, "Yeah, I guess that's why we do this." Well, that's what songwriting is like sometimes. You listen to a range of songs, and then it just feels like the next obvious thing to say would be this. That's what our songs are. They're kind of a response to this ongoing conversation that's happening between God's people and God himself. And if you're listening to the conversation, you will have something to say eventually. So make sure that when you do have something to say, you've got somewhere to put it. I used to, for many, many years, I used to sing it onto voicemail, which irritated my mother to no end. Yeah. I know Leela Mooring still does that. In fact, I know Leela Mooring was once stopped by cops in a parking lot because he was singing song ideas, kind of wandering around singing song ideas into his phone. and they wanted to arrest him for drunk and disorderly. And he had to persuade them that he was not high, and he was just working on a song. I think he did. All right. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, it's good.
All right. So let's just take a second, take 1 minute, and just to get you thinking creatively, write down three career choices that, like, if there were no limits at all, this is a magic test, and no limits at all, you could do right now. Like, if there were no constraints on your life, what 3 jobs would you like to do instead of the one you're doing right now? There you go. And I will play bad music while you do that. Anyone put down astronaut? Just curious. No, it's not cool anymore. I don't know why. Cowboy? Anyone want to be a cowboy? No. How about that? Data entry? Clown? No clowns? Illusionist? No. You don't have to tell me. I'm just kind of curious now. I've ruled out all my favorites. No. Okay. It is interesting. The President of America. No? Not a lot of songwriting opportunities, I guess. All right. Part 2. Writing a song for me is like preparing a 1-point sermon. Why 1 point? Because typically these songs that we sing are short. They're not like Dylan songs. Or Psalm 119, there's normally about 100 words in a congregational song, roughly 100 words. That's not a lot of space to make a point. I went to university after school because my dad really wanted me to do that. And I ended up spending 7 years studying after school at university. It took a long time to get that BA. No, I'm kidding. I could have. But one of the classes I took really early on was a class on logic. It was a philosophy class, and it was probably the best thing I went to in all the time I was out there. I could have stopped right there if only I knew. And one of the things that my logic professor would do every week is he'd hand us a paragraph of text from a magazine or a journal, a book, a newspaper, and he'd say, I'd like you to identify what the main point that the author or the writer is making in this paragraph. And we'd have to underline the main point. And then he said, and now I want you to identify the subclauses or the reasons given for the main point being argued. So, for example, the passage would be something like, coastal waters of California have such a variety of fish. Why, just the other day, Ted Johnson was fishing, and he caught 3 sea bass, salmon, halibut, and a stonefish. And that would be the paragraph. Like, well, what's the main point of that paragraph? Anyone want to take a stab?
There's a lot of fish.
Yes, there are plenty of fish in the sea. So then the subclauses are all the different fish that got caught, right? Now, believe it or not, the songs, you can test me out on this. Go home, once you've gone home, look at your favorite 20 songs that your church is singing. I was amazed once I started doing this, how tightly argued each of those songs are. Typically, the most popular songs, the ones that are most well-received and serve our churches best, are songs that make 1 point. Because to try and make more than 1 point in 100 words is very difficult. So they make 1 point, not 2 or 3. And then, having made that point, or having stated that point, they provide a lot of good reasons for the point they're making. Using the word technically, they make a good argument. It's a tightly worded argument. It's a good song. It's extraordinary. So, I mean, if you can, I know I've given a lot of homework and tasks, but if you can, take your favorite song when you get home and just circle the main point of that song. Find out what it is, circle it, see if you can identify it, and then see if you can identify the reasons given for it. And then try to do that on a song that you're working on. I know we all struggle with this. Like, this is the hard part for me. At a certain point when I'm creating a song or trying to write a song, creating sounds daunting, and I'm trying to finish off an idea, I'll have to get to the point where I go, what's the main point of this? Like, what am I trying to say? Am I making any point? Otherwise, it's just a series of praisephrases.com. That's what I think about. Just like one praise phrase after the other. You can throw all those, like, the right-sounding words together, but that's not going to make a worship song. It's not going to help people worship God. But really what we're doing is leading people in prayer. So when we lead people in prayer, there has to be something that they can agree with. It's got to be obvious to people what you're saying. It's not just a few random praise phrases. You've got to be making a point that needs to be made. And a while ago, when we started doing these, I was involved in some vineyard records in the UK. We did a couple, and they were so well received. We were like, what just happened? We were just making them for our little churches, which were small. Like most of the churches represented on that record were smaller than this room and this number of people. And suddenly these CDs were across the world, and we were getting letters, and then theologians started weighing in and saying, I'm not sure about the theological accuracy of this. And I got kind of jumpy for a while, to be honest. And then, so what I decided to do on the next record that we produced is send the song submissions that we were interested in, maybe the top 40 songs, and I asked the theologian to rank them in terms of, like the threshold ranking was, is this Christianity? Does this song represent Orthodox Christianity, or is it something else? And believe it or not, one of the songs I really liked came back, and he was like, this is Buddhism. So I had to break it gently to one of our writers that he's just written a really great Buddhist worship song. We might have to tweak it a little bit. So that was awkward. But then the next thing that the theologian ranked the songs on weren't just whether they were Orthodox Christianity or not. The other thing was whether they were emphasizing an element of Scripture, an element of the doctrine of Christianity, all the doctrines of Christianity that needed saying again. Because there had been a lot of songs on a particular theme at that time. There were a lot of songs on the Father's heart, God as Father, and there were a lot of songs on, I guess they call them intimacy songs, but like the closeness of our relationship with God as Father, and Jesus as friend, Holy Spirit as comforter. A lot of songs around that, and his valid, I think, his point to me was, I think we need to look at some other strands of doctrine in Scripture, because if you have these alone, your congregations are going to get unbalanced. And one of the things that was said to us again and again was, people remember that your songs long after they've forgotten the sermons. Which means that the theology of the church was in the hand of a few kids who played guitar. I mean, it was suddenly it's like, whoa, man, that is scary. We have to do some studying. So what I started to do was I'd go on preemptive strikes, and I'd say, if I discovered a teaching pastor who I really loved, or a theologian who I'd made contact with, I'd say, what do we need to sing about? What isn't being sung about right now? And you'd be amazed at how quickly they came back with responses, because this is all they think about. They're like, well, we have too many songs about this. What we need is more songs on the sovereignty of God, or we need more songs on faithfulness of God. We need songs that describe the atonement and the work of the cross. We need songs about the resurrection and the new life. We need songs on the incarnation. They come back with all these ideas. And if you're wondering what to write about, maybe you're just like, oh, that's a nice idea. I wonder what I should sing about, which is a good place to start. And if you're out of ideas, maybe try this. Just give your teaching pastor a call, or a Starbucks card, or a coffee or something, and say, hey, do you have any ideas about like what we need to affirm in our faith, in our songs? Because I'm pretty sure they'll have a few ideas, and just to get you off in the right direction. But it really, I mean, I don't want to like put a heavy on you, but it is kind of a teaching responsibility. If we're writing songs that we're asking the church to sing and pray, we're shaping their doctrine, we're shaping the way they think about the Lord, and which in turn shapes the way they live their lives. So there is a degree of pastoral responsibility that comes with this job. But it's still fun. So that's the first thing. Make sure you know what you're saying. Don't just string some phrases together. Have a point. And you don't have to get to the point immediately. Sometimes I'll start a song and I'll just be kind of singing words along to the melody and kind of praying and trying to connect with the Lord with my heart. And then some ideas will come. And then maybe they'll come fast, maybe they'll come slow, but maybe halfway through the process I go, you know what, this is a song about the faithfulness of God. And then in the simplest kind of language I have, I'll write down and say, the main point of this song is that God is completely reliable. So this song, God My Rock, that was, at a certain point I went, God is reliable. Like that's not and I try to use words that I haven't heard in church before. They're not like theological words. They're words that we speak. And this is important, I think. Like I think a lot about Pentecost, where the Holy Spirit came to empower the church to disciple the nations. The first gift that was given was the ability to communicate with people in their own language. And this is our I think this is our job as followers of Jesus, is to communicate the truth of the gospel in the kind of words and language we speak around the house and to our friends. Like we could write a song about, the propitiation of our sin, but people don't even, where would you even start with that? Like I allow myself maybe one church word in a song, and then I spend most of the rest of the song kind of unpacking that. So the closest I came to with God My Rock was, you're reliable. My first idea was you're loyal, but then it reminded me too much of a dog. I'm just letting you inside my head here. I was like, but then I nearly preached a sermon on why dogs are such great role models. They're like obedient and they follow and they're loving and they're trusting. These are characteristics that we should have towards the Lord. But I didn't want to describe God in that way, because obviously he transcends that by light years. So I got to reliable. God is reliable. So you're the strength of my heart. You're the strength of my heart. I can rely on you. That was the language I feel. I speak in. Like, can we rely on that guy? Yeah, we can totally rely on that guy. And it's quite hard to make the leap, but I really encourage you to do it. One of the exercises I do sometimes to help me make the leap is to take a psalm that I already like, and maybe not the Message version, maybe the Old King James or the New King James, and just to rewrite the psalm using the kind of conversational language that you use around the house, just to get yourself thinking that way, and to kind of step out of the praisephrases.com mode of writing. So you want to have something that's worth saying, then you want to say it in a way that people understand, in language that people use. And then thirdly, I'm coming back around to my point about argument. You need to say it in a way that's persuasive, which is a New Testament word, persuade people of the truth. So we want people, when they sing these songs, to be persuaded of the truth of our argument, of the truth of the point we're making. And some of the best worship songs, I think, do that so naturally and so cleanly and so in such an erudite way that there's nothing wasted. There's no word that's wasted. They're not filling, I need a rhyme name, so I'm going to put in praise or grace or something. It's very thought out. And they may be even using a lot of the same words that praisephrases.com has, but because they're making a statement, because they're making a point, people want to sing it. So let's have a look at a song. I always use Tim Hughes' song, Here I Am to Worship. So, light of the world, you step down into darkness, open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you, hope of a life spent with you. So here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. Here I am to worship, here I am to bow down, here I am to say that you're my God. All right, I'm sure you've sung that a good few hundred times. Anyone want to, in your own words, anyone want to take a stab at what the main point of that song is? Okay, in a sentence? Yes. He's worthy of our worship. Yes. I'd say that's pretty clear. Obviously, I've been looking at the song for a while now, so it's not really fair, but I would say he's worthy of worship right now. Like, right now, I'm going to worship God. That's what happens when you hit the chorus. Here I am to worship. I'm going to do it now. I don't know if you've ever led that song, but like you sing through verse 1, the chorus, you sing through verse 2. By the end of verse 2, people are like, I am going to worship now. You try and stop me. People want to worship God. They're persuaded of the truth of his goodness and like how magnificent he is. And people want to sing. And that's how we want to write. So how does he do it? He provides these subclauses. He provides these reasons for the main point he's making. Why would I want to worship now? And that's a question I ask. Halfway through the songwriting process, I go, well, why is God reliable? Why would I say God is reliable? What does he do? Well, he stands when others fall. He's faithful through it all. Even when I've struggled to believe, he hasn't let go of me. You want to provide good reasons why you're making this statement, why you're making this point. So Tim's reasons are this, is, well, he's the light of the world. And then he starts to unpack it. Who stepped down into darkness and opened my eyes and let me see. So he's kind of already he's given three ideas. They're not complete, but they're there. He let me see beauty that was so great. That's number 4. It made my heart adore him, number 5. And thank you very much. Beauty that made this heart adore him and gave me 6, a hope of a life spent with him. So he's given you 6 reasons, like within the first verse, why you'd want to worship him right now. He's the light of the world, stepped down into darkness, opened my eyes. I was blind, but he let me see. And then what I saw was amazing. It was beautiful. And he gave me a hope of a life spent with this beauty, of a life spent in this light. Second verse, he's the king of all days. The number 7th reason, he's highly exalted. He's glorious in heaven above. No one else is like that. And yet he came 9 humbly to the earth that he made, 10, and for the sake of love became poor, 11. And so when you get there, you're like, man, he's something. He's unusual. He's unique. Brian Dirksen has a thing that he kind of inside his head, in a pair of brackets, just before you sing the opening line of the chorus, you go, and that's why I want to say, here I am to worship. That's why I want to say, you're the strength of my heart. Or that's why I want to say, how great is our God. So typically the songs that we sing that are popular right now are kind of verse-chorus songs or verse, pre-chorus, chorus. If you're writing a song like that, and again, these are just rules of the road. Rules were made to be broken, but when you get to the top of a chorus, either the beginning or the end, that's where you want to make your main point. Save your good stuff. If there's a word that you really like or a phrase you like and it's sitting in the third line of the verse, take it from the third line of the verse and put it in the chorus, because that's where people are going to let go and really kind of abandon themselves to the song. But when you get to the chorus, go, and that's why I want to say, here I am to worship. I know that's a lot of information that I've just asked you to process. That's good. Yeah? You got it? So make sure your song is nicely argued. And I'm using that technically, not in the I hate you why can't I go out on Fridays? Not that kind of argument. So that's one way to make a point, is to make an argument. The other one is simple repetition, which is slightly harder, but it's also extremely effective. It's just as effective. There was a song on one of those Vineyard records that was called "Be the Center." Jesus, be the center, be my hope, be my life, Jesus. In that song, the chorus was, be the fire in my heart, be the wind in these sails, be the reason that I sing, Jesus, Jesus. You remember that song? What would you say the main point of that song is in your own words? Yes, but in your words. Do you speak French? You could say it in French if you'd like, yeah. Take control, maybe, yeah. Be my focus. Yeah, or maybe be the most important thing. It revolves around you. Bring our attention. Yeah. These are all good. See, this is almost a worship song now. You took all those phrases and put them together. Be my focus. Let my life revolve around you. That's kind of powerful. Our own words are good. They are not bad. They're useful. It's interesting. I mean, this is a side note, really, but in Islam, you can't translate the Quran. You know that? You're not allowed to translate the Quran because they worry that the meaning will be lost. So everyone has to learn Arabic and then has to read the Quran in the original translation. Contrast that with Pentecost and the Holy Spirit coming and everybody getting to communicate the gospel in their own language. God sanctifies our uniqueness. He sanctifies who we are and where we are and the way we speak. And the best kind of songs communicate out of that. They communicate in the language that we speak. How great is our God? It's cool. Because, how often do we say, well, how cool is that? Right? It's just cheeky. It's cool that we're allowed to do that. Sorry, cheeky is a South African word, I think, or English. Anyway. So there you go. You make a good argument, or you repeat. You repeat the same idea over and over again. So that's what Michael and Helen Fry did there. These were all different metaphors or images of be the important thing to me. Be my hope, be my light, be the wind in these sails, be my energy, be the reason that I sing. That's another way to do it. You have to sit down with a pad and just start writing. There's a writer called Dave Wilcox who's a folk singer. But he's like a lyrical genius. He really is a lyrical genius. And when he writes, he says, as he starts the process, just while he's got all that energy and that initial emotional, catalytic energy going on, he just writes down as many phrases on topic as he can. He tries to fill 3 legal pages of phrases. And then when he gets down to the nitty-gritty and he's finishing the song, he's got a lot more raw material to pull from. That's kind of a good thing to go with. And then you're kind of pulling from a larger pile. The final way to make a point to the song is to tell a story. Yeah, but it's less easy to do. It's not as popular in pop songs. I was thinking like Don McLean. He used to tell those stories, the Vincent van Gogh story and the American Pie story, whatever that means. It's so beautiful. I have no idea what he's talking about. But there are ways to tell a story in a worship song that do work. But the theme has to be universal. So one of my favorite ones is Redman's song, when the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come. Remember that? Longing just to bring something that's of worth that'll bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song. The song in itself is not what you've required. You search much deeper within through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It works because, I think it works because the story is universal. Like all of us at some point or another are going to feel that. We're going to feel like, man, forget about all the things that I'm trying to do to get to you. What I really want is you. I want you. And so he's telling a story that people can relate to. I've got a really good friend in a church in Chicago, and they were doing a church record, and they asked for song submissions. If people wanted their songs to be recorded, they said, send them in, and we'll have a listen. And one of the songs was amazing, had a lot of promise, and it went something like, God, you are awesome, maker of the planets, bringer of new life. You have changed my heart, and you healed my cousin Dave. So, it's all true, but not everybody has a cousin Dave. So, and not all of the cousin Daves were healed. So that's not universal. So there's your challenge with that one. And also, it really is. It does require a lot of thinking. Redmond's, he's sharp, that little dude, man. Because when you get to the chorus, do you know that his passport photograph is life size? Yeah, that's how small he is. Yeah, he'll get me back. So, so you have to get to the main point, the thrust of your song. The logical force of your song typically should happen in the chorus, which is what happens. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It'd be kind of nice. We're kind of due for another song like that. Just letting you know. It'd be nice to have another song like that. Okay. So, finally, how to choose your topic, apart from asking your teaching pastor, what should we sing about? I should say this just as an aside. I used to think that unless the song kind of just spilled out of me and happened in the first couple songs I wrote, kind of almost just happened to me. Maybe they were in a quiet time, or I was feeling super depressed or something, and I picked up my instrument and I just started playing, and then I got a song, and they, out of all the songs that I was writing at the time, those are the ones that did the best. Was over all the earth you reign on high. That song just kind of came out. I wrote it on a napkin. I've still got the napkin. I think I made one word change in that song. So for the longest time I thought, in order for a song to be holy and kind of special, anointed, I guess is the word we used back in our charismatic church, it had to happen immediately. It had to kind of just pour out of my mouth. And anything that was involved any kind of labor or work or that was it was good, but it wasn't as holy or special as the other one. But I don't actually think that is true. In fact, there's an element of heresy to that. That's not how the Lord always works. He does work like that sometimes, but it doesn't describe the way he works all the time. And kind of one of the better examples of it is the Gospel of Luke, where he writes to dear Theophilus, and he says, I've made a study of these things, and I'm going to write and tell you about them. He sat down and he studied, and he worked his way through it. And that's God-breathed, holy, inspired scripture. And God worked through Luke's diligence and his study to bring light in his kingdom to millions and millions of people. And obviously our songs aren't scripture. They don't carry the same authoritative weight as scripture. But we can study and show ourselves diligent and dive into God's word and still produce songs, write songs that touch people in a way that we can't do it, in a way that only God can. So my encouragement is maybe start to think about your songs as you would a sermon. I don't want that to bum you out, musos. Oh man, I just got this really great groove. I feel like that's enough. But it actually becomes easier when you look at it like that. At a certain point with a song, I'm going to have to study. Sometimes it's beforehand. Mostly it's in the middle and towards the end. Because very often, maybe I'll watch a movie. I watched a movie about a small puppy. I was extremely moved. I went home, and on the basis of that energy and emotion, I wrote a verse and 3/4 of a chorus. And then I got stuck. I had nothing else to say. I don't know if you've ever been there. Just shoo, well, that's pretty much all that can be said on the atonement. I guess we'll have to write about another topic now. I don't know why, but like at a certain point you kind of run out of juice. And then the temptation at that point is to go, I'm just going to write about another subject. I've covered this one nicely. Let's move on to the incarnation. That seems like a good idea. And obviously, people find those really weird. They're hard to sing. They're hard to follow. You want the song to make one point. I've said that before. So you get to study at a certain point. You have to study to show yourselves approved, a workman worthy of the Lord and rightly dividing Scripture. And there's there's just so many resources out there. But, if you're starting from scratch with nothing, get a topic from your teaching pastor if you want to start. I like writing on assignment because it kind of narrows it down a little bit. It's almost like I could write on anything in the world, and it's like it's too big a challenge. He's like, man, I'm going to talk about David beating Goliath. Can you write a song on Sunday that connects with that? And it's kind of because it's an assignment, you kind of focus in and get the job done, and you kind of lower your expectations of yourself. You're not going to write, a Beatles song, but you're going to write a song that helps serve this particular sermon. So get studying, either beforehand or afterwards, but you're going to have to study at some point. Otherwise, you'll never finish those songs. And there is more to be said. These theologians are onto something. I don't know how they did it, but like all of them wrote like volumes and volumes of books. Karl Barth just wrote so much stuff. N.T. Wright just keeps writing stuff. Alistair McGrath. I don't know how it feels like he's writing more books than I write songs. There's information out there, so get a hold of it. And then kind of lower your goal. This is my final thing, like lower your standard. My goal, I made this kind of loose goal at age 20, is if I could write a song that I was pleased with once a year, if I could write one song I was happy with a year. By the time, if I made it to 60, I would have written 40 good songs. That's cool, huh? That'll do. So maybe just set that bar. Just say, maybe just one time this year I'd like to write a song. I want to finish a song that I'm very happy with. Now, it doesn't have to be the best song ever written, but you're just pleased with it. You were responsible with the ideas that you got given, and you did a good job. If you keep doing that, you'll be good. Yeah, so many things to be said. The third and final point was the crossword. I don't know if you've ever done a crossword. They're kind of infuriating for me. Sometimes I do them. Occasionally, I nearly finish them. And then I spend the rest of the week just wandering around the house asking complete strangers what they think of, what's a 5-letter word for a flat surface. I'll walk up to anybody, 5-letter word for flat surface. Eventually, I'll be like, that word doesn't exist, man. They made a mistake. I don't know how they did it, but it's been done. It's too bad. And then the crossword arrives and it's table. I'm like, oh, that is a 5-letter word for a flat surface. How about that? So I kind of feel like that about some of the words. Like there are a couple words that we could just tick off, like especially rhymes, like praise and name and grace. Let's just cross those out. There are other words. There are other words out there. There are a lot of words. If you're stuck on them, just persist. I think you're going to find a word that's better than the one you're thinking of right now. It's agonizing. I mean, it is agonizing, but in the end, it's kind of rewarding as well. All right, that's my process. If that's helped you, fantastic. If it's not, don't even worry about it. This is art. There's probably 1,000 other ways to write an amazing song. God bless you guys.